I guess we are live. All right. So, does everybody see the live? Are we good?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So, welcome back to Worldhoppers, everybody. This is a collaborative booktube channel where all of the proceeds and AdSense go to charity. And today we are joined by 5 other lovely booktubers who have the correct opinion on Evan Winter's Rage of Dragons. Yes. And that is what this video is. This is all about how much we love Rage of Dragons and why all you haters are wrong. So,
what an intro.
And I believe Elliot is giving us some questions. So
Ooh.
I'll start. So let's just go across. We'll just kind of go in like a circle here. Okay. So if you could have Tao fight any other fantasy character, who would you want him to fight? And would he win? Okay. So let's start up in the top left corner. TG, let's go.
If I could have Tao fight any other fantasy character, so I guess I would have him beat up Percy Jackson. That's the first one that came to my mind. I'm sorry. I mean, I know the demigod. So have you guys read the Percy Jackson series?
I've read the first one.
So usually when you beat up, or usually like when you beat up the gods or kids or something like that, they might the gods might give you a gift or something like that. So maybe he beats up Percy Jackson, and then like Zeus or Poseidon and be like, "Oh, you are the most gifted. You know, here's some sort of gift," and he could use that to like, you know, save his city or something like that. That's just what came to mind. I'm sorry, Percy Jackson fans. I like Percy Jackson too, but maybe Tao will just slice him up real quick and that'd be it.
So I take it Tao is winning this fight.
Easy.
All right, Leslie.
I would have to say Ren. Ren from the Poppy War. I would like for him to take her out because she gets on my nerves. But would he win? That's difficult.
So do you actually want him to fight her or not then?
Yeah, because if I would love for him to somehow find a way, but she's pretty much a beast, but I think she's more hot-headed than he is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he would win. I think she would manage to pull it out only because she has Kate on her side.
So Leslie wants Tao to die.
Gosh.
What I'm
I mean, I do it with it. It will make him stronger.
If he's dead?
No, if he manages to beat her, she would be a worthy opponent.
Okay.
Fair enough. Oh, by the way, for everybody watching, there will likely be spoilers at some point in this video for Rage of Dragons, so keep that in mind if you haven't read it. But let's go to Q.
I'd have to go with Quoth from The Wise Man's Fears or The Name of the Wind. And I have nothing against Quoth. I love Quoth. He's a great character. But Patrick Rothfuss needs to finish that book, and the only way I could get to him is by attacking him. So, my man, I'm sending him straight to Quoth, take him out, let him know that, hey, you need to finish this book, hold him for ransom. That's all I got.
I like that.
That's all I got.
Read Misery recently.
Say it again.
We can see that you read Misery recently.
I would have to go with Zelly from Children of Blood and Bone. I'm a really big fan of her, and I feel like in a lot of ways she's equally a hothead. In a lot of ways that Tao is, and she's very much a female character that will fight to the death. And I feel like you need that to take on Tao. You have to be willing to die for it.
Yes.
And also I feel like as a female fighter, she's very strategic, but she does have some type of like supernatural elements to help her in the same ways that Tao does. So I don't know if he would win. I think it depends on who's hungrier for it, who's angrier about it. Maybe if he says something slick before he fights Zelly, he might meet his demise, but I'm going with Zelly.
Good answer. Y'all ever watch Family Feud? Good answer.
It would be like Afrocentric, like everything we need for the culture, but I don't know who would win.
I'm so surprised that in this group, no one has said my answer. I'm going to go with Darrow.
Darrow? That'd be a good score.
I think Darrow versus Tao would be a fight of the ages.
Like the most hate-fueled fight in existence.
Exactly.
They're both so motivated, and they're both they're internally motivated. Tao is fighting for revenge. Darrow is also fighting for revenge, but also like a revolution in a different way. And I think the dual wheel versus the scythe together, oh, that would be epic. I think they honestly might both win, but kill each other in the process, and that would be like an epic series finale.
Yes.
That I deserve.
That's
Who
good.
get the last like strike though?
I feel like the razor has a longer reach. So I feel like even if Darrow like laid out, he might just and that's it.
Nah, Tal will throw one of the swords.
Yeah.
Darrow is also a gold though, so you have to
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
That's Full Red Rising in this Rated Dragon. Area. No, that would be a great fight though. And Darrow's a complete psychopath monster, just like Tao is. I would have Tao probably fight Geralt from The Witcher, because I feel like that would be a somewhat fair-ish fight. I mean, Geralt has magic, and he can kind of go toe-to-toe with a lot of people. Tao obviously has, everything from Issy Hogo that he's trained to do, but I mean, largely Tao is just kind of a warrior. Like, he's a really good one, and he's better than other humans, but Geralt might be able to kind of, pull some tricks out of his sleeve in a one-on-one with Tao. I think Tao is enough of a psycho that he'd probably win that eventually because he refuses to die for anything.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a good fight that I want to see.
Agreed.
All right, so did we lose somebody? Should we give this a minute? Or is her
We lost
camera
Erin.
off? Is it just her camera, or did she drop?
I think we lost her.
Dang, I can't even see, I guess Elle can probably see who's still in the lobby or not.
There she is.
We're good.
Peter was about to die.
Okay, so best and worst scene from book one.
We all know what the worst thing in that book is.
Yes, we do.
Does it have to do with shortsy thing or swordshi thing?
Yeah, a little bit.
Bathing. This is the bathing part for me.
You didn't like the bathing?
You didn't like the bathing?
Oh man.
That man was dirty. He needed a bath. What's
They've
wrong?
been training for months. Like,
She had to wash
That
her
was
quick.
so awkward. So awkward. Which
Okay, so
I mean, they
it
are
sounds like we might all be
teenagers.
agreeing here, but let's go.
Not just
Let's
for
go around
but
let's go around the
luckily,
room. Oh man! All right, so TG, let's start with you again.
best and worst scene? Or
Yeah,
just-
so start with your worst and then do your best.
Okay. Worst scene. So does worst scene have to be like the scene that we feel like was the worst, like in the book, or just worst, like you didn't like it?
I'd say either way, whether it's
Either
a
way.
personal or just objectively, I guess whatever you want to do.
Got you. I guess so. The worst scene, I guess, that I didn't like, and I guess because it made me angry, was the brother Lekin. I hated Lekin, and so when I found out that Lekin had like double crossed the dad to like get that family killed, it made me really angry. I was like, I hate this dude. Like, I hate him even more than I thought I could hate him. So I guess it's not really worse, but I hated it. I didn't like it. Best scene. When Tao is going against Kellen O'Carr round 2, and he's like, I got this now. Like, I was also, and this is Ray Dragons, it makes you mad. I was also mad at Tao because he let all his boys get slapped up, get his revenge. But like how he had Kellen and was like, oh, you're the best of the greater nobles. You're the one who's taking over the keys. And I'm about to show everybody right now that you're really no match for me. And so he just like sliced them and taunted them. And then you got Kellen's point of view, and he's like, I can't believe this dude is really giving me this work like this. Like, I'm astonished. And Tao was just out here, and then they had your boy Jair had to come in and stop it. And I was like, yo, let him. I was kind of like that meme, like, let him fight.
Yeah.
Like, let him keep it, let it going. So those are the two that come to my mind. So yeah.
Let's see. Best and worst scenes. Worst for me was the prologue. The prologue I never connected to. It made no sense. If you had taken that out of the book would have just been absolutely phenomenal without it. I didn't see too much that it added to the story.
Okay.
Once I hit chapter 1, it snapped. I was in. I was completely sold.
I am appalled. I am taking aback.
And yeah, so the best scene is when Zuri gave Tao the dragon scale, I can talk really. The dragon scale sword at the end, where she added his father and his grandfather's
Hilts to
pieces to it, the hilts. That to me, it was the absolute perfect ending. That was like, it was like a huge movie. That was just the closing scene. It was perfect. It just had me so hyped up that when I finished the book, I was ready to go outside, run a full marathon, come back, still have energy to do something else. I was so over the moon because that just opens up a world of possibilities for Fires of Vengeance. And I was like ready for it right then. I just thinking about reading that scene again just totally hypes me up.
For me, I don't know if I have mine's the bath scene, I guess. A good one. But for me, I think I had more worst moments. And it was always when I'm sure this is what probably got a lot of people's nerves was just when Tao did like stupid stuff, like come on.
Which time?
I can't even call him out because he was so many times, and it was like, bruh, like what are you doing? Like,
but he was a teenager who didn't have anybody to teach him to be better.
Teenager, he just wants revenge, all that. He's blinded by anger, and I get it. But there were times where he would just do stuff, and I was like,
he was no thought.
Where's the deep? Please, somebody help him.
It's what happens when you let that emotion get ahead of you.
Yeah.
How did you forget how to bathe? I know you knew how to bathe before that. You forgot how to bathe.
Now I expect the crazy things for someone who is literally going to hell every single day, willingly, by choice, for funsies.
For funsies. That's true.
Come on.
Best scene to me was when they had that big battle with the Zidian, and the raged Zidian woman whenever they were about to fight or they were fighting, and then she turned and ran. To me, that was like
she didn't want no parts.
Like, okay,
yeah.
I was like, okay, and she was just running. To me, it was funny, it was fun, but also like a tragedy within the scene too. It was just a lot, and that was my favorite, hands down.
A lot happened in that scene, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
His boy died. He had to save a bunch of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think for that scene, seeing Cal from the perspective of someone else was interesting because she was like, I have no problem fighting a man.
Yeah, right.
That's is a demon. And I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was dope.
And watching her like, oh, by the time he won't get to me because he's going to be cut down way before he gets away. We have kind of worries. And then she's like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
It's like, no, y'all can have it.
Exactly.
I think the worst scene for me, I know what the worst scene for me is. When Zuri died, Aaron will tell you, I put the book down. I didn't want to read. I was going to DNF at that moment.
How you gonna do that?
Because it was like almost, and they saved her to let her die.
Yeah.
And then
my heart
with Aaron, and I said, if they kill her, I'm gonna DNF the book. And then they proceeded to do it. And so there was an hour gap between me finishing and Aaron finishing because I was not gonna get over it. And I think the best thing for me is actually in the prologue. I really, really related to the queen, and I feel like a lot of times when we see a queendom, they lack empathy in a lot of ways because we have to be like this tough leader. And I just, as a hothead myself, I'm very emotional. So like when she watched her lover get cut down and said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm going to burn it all." I really related to that because I'm like, okay, I understand your thought process now. Like I tried to make it a 50-50 battle, last man standing, hurrah. But yeah, I'm just going to have to set fire to everything. Yeah. And that was wonderful for me.
The funniest thing of that scene was because I didn't know the prologue was going to be like completely almost separated from the main book. So you start being introduced to characters, and I'm seeing names being dropped, and then axe to the face. I was like, oh, okay, he's dead. Well, here's Billy, axe to the face. I'm like, everyone's dying.
Yeah.
2 pages in.
It's like, don't get attached.
I feel like when we go into the story later, there are so many long-lasting, like dynamic effects of her decision to come to this land versus how desperate they were to get here, and then somehow they became, in a lot of ways, the oppressor. And they're the outsiders, but we get their point of view as like Black people in America. This is not our home, but we live here now, and so y'all just gonna have to figure out a way to coexist with us because we're not going back. And I really agree with that dynamic because you're conflicted as a reader. Do I really support them, knowing their history, knowing what they did to the other people that live on this island, knowing all the detrimental things that they did? However, I understand the desperation. So I remember being torn between, well, I don't know if I really support you,
Yeah.
I think on this reread, my favorite scenes have definitely changed. And I think it's also because I was looking forward to so many things. But I think the worst scene for me is when they were in the Queen's Melee and the new guy that had joined with the group, that had joined Jaid's 5, well, now Jaid's 6, and he was calling for mercy, and he just popped his head like a watermelon.
Yes.
That was
rough.
And I could
It
tell
was
it hurt.
the Murphy.
Oh.
Don't do them like that.
That scene really hurt me because we didn't see Tao connect with that many characters or even show any interest or investment, but he actually was hurt by that when he was invested in him, and obviously we saw how he reacted. But my favorite thing upon this reread was the battle when Tao gets the second solar, just because that is the game-changing moment in the book. He grabs the second solar and fights with it, and the guy's like, he's not about to do it. I think he's about to do it. And then he proceeds to do it, and it's like, chef's kiss, so good.
So, a worst scene, I think we can all agree that like the whole sex scene is just terrible.
Yeah.
That was something. I don't. Aside from that, though, as far as like worst scenes, I think you guys have already said them. I mean, Zuri's death pissed me off too, just because I feel like she didn't get enough like build up in time to really be like that character that I wanted her to be. I was like, okay, this is gonna be his love interest. Like they're gonna grow to. Oh, she's dead. Yeah. Like I didn't think they were actually gonna kill her, so I didn't like that scene. The bat scene is literally like the actual worst scene of the book. So sorry, I'm not going to be original with the worst scene, but one of the scenes that stuck out to me was actually when Tao is trying to get to the tournament and he has to fight Udawak the first time and just like literally does not give up, and Udawak is just beating the shit out of him the whole time, and he just keeps getting back up, and he's just like it's like the first instinct that you see of like, or the first instance of him kind of like being a demon almost. He is relentless. He's not going to stop. Like this dude is driven more than anybody in the entire book, and Udawak even just be like towering over him, and just like this dude is not stopping. And then of course you see that reiterated throughout the book, but that was the first time that it really stuck out to me. And I was just like, okay, like this is what Tao's about. That's why you're gonna follow him and ride with him through the entire book.
Yeah, he almost lost his first melee joint, right? Until he was like, oh, if you get hit in the head. Yeah, and the other person's golf
like leaned into it. Like,
and you're like, wow, bro, you really willing to get hit in the head with a sword to go for it? Like, okay, like desperate.
The full circle when it came back around, that was so sweet. He hit to death, and I actually wanted that to happen. I'm a terrible person, I know, but I was like, ooh, don't call a draw, just let him beat him to death. Like I was so.
That was one of the best parts about Evan Winter is he just let them duke it out. I loved all of the battles. I love the fighting. I just absolutely lived for it. I cannot wait to hit Fire's Vengeance. I hope it's more of that.
It is.
Went into the medical center to see Udawak afterwards, and did he call him a demon? Like what did he call him?
Yeah.
Like
he called him a little demon.
That was one of my favorite scenes too.
He said, "You want me to leave?" He said, "No, I want you to sit here and take it." Like I took that beating.
That's right.
All right. So, what criticisms, if any, do you feel are valid against the book? So, I know mine, but we'll start again with TG up in the corner. None. Next question.
Keep it moving. No, I mean, a lot of people, from what I've heard, people just criticize, like, oh, I think you and I talked about this. It was like, oh, it's just a bunch of training scenes. Like, all he does, Tao just training, level up. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, he does do some of the repetitive training to get his level up. I can see that. But I'm someone who, I love some anime. I love seeing a character like Vegeta just put himself through the hyperbolic sound chamber over and over and over again, get beat down, until finally they come out and they're like, all right, I took 100 L's, but I'm about to get this win right now because of all those L's I took. And so that never got old to me, and Evan was very creative in having Tao die in various ways through these demons in his training. He got mutilated over and over again. So I can see that, criticism like, oh, these things were repetitive in that way it was, but I think it was still impactful and I enjoyed it. So,
yeah, I mean, I agree with that because they're either going to complain that there's all training sequences where it shows how he got better, or they're going to complain because the character starts out all powerful from the beginning and it was too easy.
We have one month scene where he fought for months and months and he trained every day, and by the end, no one could beat him. I'm like, I don't do that.
Yeah, I loved seeing him develop over time with his training because it did evolve, and we got to watch that. I felt a part of it, and it just allowed me to emotionally connect to his journey and just understand what he was going through and what he was willing to go through to get to his objective. So I loved that. But for me, criticism. So one thing I love about this world is I don't know if I can say this word. I will try. Matriarchal. Somebody say it for me.
The matriarchy. Yeah.
So I loved that, but he didn't really give the women much of a voice. We get a little bit of the queen at the end, and we get a little bit of Zuri here and there, but she was really just kind of used for exposition, not really fleshed out as much as I wanted her to be as a character, because I really kind of honed in on her. She interests me. I was interested in her journey as a lady gifted, but I just didn't feel that while these women were in power, which was great because most of the time women in fantasy don't get to be in power without being questioned or go through some terrible thing. I just wanted more of their voice in the world. So I agree with it, but I'm still not mad at the book.
For me, I mentioned earlier is a lot of people, I saw a lot of like 1-star reviews. Me and Terry were looking at it. TG were looking at it the other day, and it was all about he was so gung-ho on revenge that he seemed to not be very, very smart about the decisions that he would make. And that was honestly, I mean, I get why people are upset about it. And it was, to me, it enhanced the story though, a little bit as well. Because to me, it got me in my emotions. Like, you idiot, you about trying to get your revenge, but you're going to run off and go do this and mess it all up. Like, come on, bro, like, chill out. Reel yourself back in a little bit. I mean, like Leslie mentioned earlier, I mean, he's a 15, 14-year-old. I don't know how old he is. He's a teenager, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like, what do you expect? But I still kind of feel him. Like, he was kind of like, come on.
He was, but he had this, he didn't want to fight. He had this dream. He was going to settle down with Zuri and just live a comfortable life. His dad gets killed. Zuri gets killed. I mean, what would you do? What would you do?
Goes through a lot, man.
I would go ham, but I would have Hadith. Okay, you're the plotter. Let's come up for me so I can get this done before I run off to the hills and try to go spy on them and get caught and killed. And you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, bro. Like,
I think Tao being a numbnuts in book 1 though makes book 2 that aspect better because again, like the training sequences, you see growth in him.
Yeah, I agree.
And by the end, when he has to make the decision between enacting his revenge or helping the queen, what does he do?
He sacrifices, and he gets much better. And I think everyone in the world isn't smart and logical. It makes the best decisions. So expecting teenagers in like this oppressive situation to make the best decisions is a little unrealistic for me. And so I feel like, wow, they always make the right choice, always do the right thing.
Yeah, and he's
I agree.
also found out their caste system and how they're dealt with this military rule. And if you're not in the military or you're not a noble, you're a lesser, you don't have many choices. So as a teenager, I mean, I would be mad as hell. And when I'm mad, I don't have logic. I don't think things through. I just react.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I 100% relate to Tao in every way.
He was totally reacting, but he
For
makes
sure.
Don't relate to Tao.
I would definitely say
I'm not a fan of Tao. I didn't love him. I didn't connect with him. There was a huge disconnect between like how he was raised, like, you know, in like the social caste systems and whatnot. And then he was the cause of his father's murder. And this is somebody who had no aspirations to be a part of a rebellious group. Nobody recruited you. Nobody, like, all of a sudden, one day you just woke up and just decided, like, today was the day that you weren't going to be, like, it wasn't a connection for him to just all of a sudden hate his life, especially when you were going to succumb to it last night or literally the day before this morning when you woke up. You were going to injure yourself and be a cripple for the rest of your life. Yeah, that was comfortable for you. And then you just went to the demise of your own father. And like, I did not connect with Tao. I loved other characters in the book more than I loved Tao. He was too one-track minded. He wasn't complex enough. He wasn't like, it wasn't hard to get. He didn't have that much depth, I guess I'm trying to say. Like, the man had one purpose, one focus, one thought, one brain cell the entire book, and I did not relate to it. And I feel like Ren is also a child.
Yes.
Everyone can't have.
Hold on. I feel like
mean,
sometimes if characters change their monologue, then they're too wishy-washy, right? It's easy to say somebody's wishy-washy if they're like, oh, I feel this way, but now I feel this way, but now I feel this way, but now I feel this way. But Tao was like,
He
look,
committed.
this is how I feel. I'm committing to it 100%.
So, like, in a lot of ways, Ren is also a child, and Ren goes to a training, and Ren kind of becomes the anti-hero in a lot of similar ways to Tao. But over the course of the book, Ren becomes increasingly angry, and then there's a snapping point. But we got Tao's snapping point at like 12% of the book. And it's completely different because when Ren gets to the edge and starts, you know, doing what she does, it's very different because it's like, you know what, this girl took a lot. And I understand, like, you know, now this is like how rebellious groups are formed. This is how martyrs come. Like, Katniss Everdeen didn't have a moment where she just snapped in the beginning of the movie. Like, if you're going to be this rise to like this monarch and like this overturning of the kingdom and like how it's run, like there has to be an increase in the book. And I feel like if you said that it didn't happen in this book, to me, you would be valid. And I feel like it makes the book and the movie better when we have like what you were talking about earlier, the rise to like them being the most powerful, the rise to them taking on, you know, saying the social hierarchy. But the moment where Tao snapped, and then on top of that, it was his fault. And you want so much vengeance for your dad that you don't actually challenge. Like, you know, his dad was like this calm person to me in the book. He was logical. He understood his place, but he was also a leader where he was. And so like, you're raised by this man who clearly has 2 brain cells, and not once did you think, yo, my dad would probably tell me like, maybe this isn't the moment, or like, you never actually thought about your father. You were so focused on the vengeance that you, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, kind of dishonored his memory.
So yes, that's fair. But even in the situation where they were at the training, the system and the oppression of that system made that thing happen because he was forced to fight that man who had a bronze sword, who could literally, when they were sparring, who could literally kill him. But then it's like, why are we fighting with bronze? And he's like, oh, it doesn't matter. So it's literally like, I had to defend myself with my superior training, or I was going to die. He was going to die in that moment because the noble guy was going to kill him. And then the other nobles escalated that situation that much further because him being knocked to the ground was not him attacking him. They were sparring, which is what he was asked to do because he was sparring with someone else. So them choosing to pull him into that situation and have him risk his life unnecessarily, that's what led to it. So that system, the setup was wrong because even if Tao was punished, him being killed or his father stepping in for him, having his hand chopped off was a serious escalation and a representation of the system that they had that was so unfair because all the man did was fall to the ground. He couldn't fight anyway, and he was fat and untrained. So it's like he wasn't going to win regardless.
He had a moment to redeem himself, though. He kept going with it. He had a moment to take his pride back. And I understand your point of view because of the world we live in, but this is the world Tao is from.
But the
and
guy
everybody else needs to know where they fall in the social order except Tao. And this is your world. I disagree. I'm not a fan of Tao.
We all know Tao. Okay.
So I'm honestly surprised you like the book. Honestly, if you're not a fan of Tao, it's kind of hard that you would enjoy Tao's journey then. So I'm just kind of surprised.
I like the world and the plot and the other characters. Like I said, more than that. Like there was
You be
more.
quiet, Elliot.
The commentary is so funny.
Trolling over here.
This is the man who was going to cripple himself. Like you were so terrified.
His dad wouldn't have had one hand because Lacan, we know that he's vengeful. So they would have probably died away.
Oh yeah.
He would have found a reason to kill him.
His livelihood was over because wasn't he training?
Yeah,
and
he was
you
a
can't.
trainer.
Yeah.
So
He was
they
already
would have been banished.
Yeah. But then thrown off a cliff.
Yeah, right.
So.
Yep.
All right, Alex.
Oh, is it me now? Okay. I didn't know if we were still talking about the same thing. So I mean, honestly, the main two things. So obviously, Tao. I could see people not liking him. That's just been discussed. There's a lot of criticisms that I hard disagree with. So we'll get into those later, I'm sure. But the whole dual wielding thing, like I briefly mentioned, I definitely see I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, like he's the first person to ever pick up a second sword and dual wield," and everyone would be so confused by this guy with two swords. Like okay. Sure. Like somebody probably would have done it before Tao. I get it. It doesn't bother me. I was just like, cool. Like that's just where they're at in this, evolution of fighting. But, everybody nowadays, like we know how fighting techniques are and people use dual wielding all the time. I get it. A lot of other things I have much more to say about if Elle has us say, things that we disagree with that are not valid criticisms, because I would love to talk about that. But I feel like the valid criticisms are, this many, and there's like this many invalid criticisms. So we can go to the next question. All right. So the favorite elements of the book, what things do you think are unfairly picked on? And that's for me.
Let's start the other way, Alex. You already in that mode. Man. You started. We'll come back around to me. Just wondering real quick.
Okay, so first and foremost, the fact that Tao just magically gets stronger overnight is total crap. Because did you not read like half the book when he's literally dying repeatedly in Isihogo, fighting literal demons? Training to fight better than any human that's ever existed. Not to mention
time passed differently there. Like an
time
hour in his world was like
literally
days there.
Almost living lifetimes of battles over and over again and suffering through that turmoil and literally dying repeatedly to get stronger just so his instincts are better. That whole training sequence makes more sense to his power level than had he just been fighting a bunch of, peasants that had a sword and shield, because then he wouldn't be training. He was fighting literal demons in this world. Okay.
I thought it was fantastic.
So that's the first thing I'm going to say is his power level was totally justified. And I feel like a lot of people just kind of glazed over it as if like it didn't happen when it did. I don't know if it's almost one of those things where like had Evan Winter spent more time doing it, people would be like, oh my God, it's more training sequences. This is all we're doing. And had he spent, exactly, time doing it, then it would have felt even more like flippant, like, oh, he's just powerful now, which I think he spent the right amount of time showing his training, going in and out of Isihogo, and just like spending grueling hours, even after training entire days with everybody else in the scale, to then go and spend all night doing that. Like, it's totally justified. I do not agree with that critique at all. And then we'll go around, and if it gets back to me, and I still have more to say, I will. But,
okay, would around be me? Okay, cool. My favorite element of the book was how matter of fact the violence was. I don't think it was gratuitous. It didn't like go overly, like, it wasn't overly descriptive, like for the sake of being violent. It's just this is a war-based society. They are fighting. They are training to go to war, a never-ending war. So I think that it was just violent enough. And I love how the violence and the action were so fast paced. They weren't drawn out. I didn't have to suffer through it. The deaths all came quick. Love that. The thing I think is unfairly picked on is people who say that Tao does not struggle and he does not lose. Because honestly, the first 250 pages, he is getting that work.
It's like an L's.
Yes, he is.
The whole time. Even when he starts to dual wield, he's like, I can only beat like one person. And he's like, the more and more I fight, and then it's just a sentence, and he's like, oh, I start to win more than I lose. And he's like, well, even when I go up against Uduak, I can hardly ever win. And we have a whole another Ishiogo sequence where he's like, okay, I know Uduak's coming soon, so I have to be ready. And so like the whole first half of the book, he is the weakest. And we know because everyone else is of mixed noble blood, he literally is the weakest genetically and biologically. Like, seeing people say that, I'm like, we could not have read the same book. Because he struggled the entirety of the first half of the book. He was not winning. He was losing the entire time. He literally got his will shattered.
Yep. I think my favorite element of the book would be how dynamic the world is set up. The different tribes, I would call them, or collective governments, and just the way that everybody, like, he does a good job of developing characters that don't get a lot of on-page screen time. Every time we see Zuri, we see the maturity that's occurring with her. We see, like, I don't know what's going on with her, but when she becomes Lady Gifted and she's kind of forced into this life, you could tell that she goes off as like the scared little girl. But in a lot of ways, every time we see her, she's so much more mature and so much more grown. And that contributes to what I think is unfairly picked on about the book. It's a queendom. And so a lot of ways, the men are the muscles. Nobody expects them to be the brains. They send them out there to do manly things, which is fight to the death, sweat, and whatever. And so clearly the women in this book are the thinkers. And so Tao is entering the ranks of the hierarchy, and he falls well below where a Lady Gifted would be, and even lower below that where a queen would be, or some type of leader of the council. And so of course we're not going to see much female perspectives in the book, because the time that he steals with Zuri is actually stolen time. And you see that a lot when he's talking to her, and like people that are higher ranked will come across and be like, what are you doing discussing this with her? The women in this book are elevated in a lot of ways. And so I feel like where Tao is right now, he's not going to see a lot of female perspectives, because he's not even mentally like on the level to be there. They treat him what he is, which is like a sack of meat or a muscle. Like, you know, they're the first line of defense before the next people come in, before, like, there's going to be a big gap between where Tao is and where the females are, because clearly they run this kingdom.
Facts.
Favorite element? Partly the caste system, partly how he touches on colorism a bit. Like, there's times where he really tries to emphasize, and because, like, he wrote this book for his son because he wanted his son to have to read about characters that were like him, that looked like him in fantasy. And there's times where he describes, like, some of the women, like the queen, like, her skin was so dark and beautiful, and she was this, you know, it was just, he did a good job of just displaying, like, his love for the culture, his love for that there's beauty in every shade of color, right? In every tone. And I really appreciated that for him. And then just the whole caste system, and you know how there's oppression within the oppression, and you have the top half of the caste system, the lower half, and even then within the ranks of that, it was just really interesting to me, and a very cool dynamic. And then things that I thought were unfairly picked on. To me, I go back to the training, the action. Like, everyone just said it's just a big fight scene. To me, I'm like, I'm about that action. Tao's about that action. Let's have some fun. Let's dig into that. Let's see how he trains. Let's see how he gets better. I said it earlier. I love, and Terry mentioned it, like Vegeta. You know, I love Rocky. I love Creed, where they have these montages of them training, fighting, getting better. They can't run. They can't catch a chicken, but now they catch a chicken. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're doing all these, you know, and it's just, it feels so good to see the growth in that. And I just don't understand why people didn't like it. So that's all I got.
For me, I have to agree. Like, I'm normally a very character-driven reader, but in this particular book, I love the world building. I loved the African-inspired fantasy. I loved the care with which he built the caste system, and it's the queen and the nobles, and the genetics determined where you would fall, and then you have your military. I loved all of that. And what really pissed me off is the most criticism that I personally heard were people complaining that they couldn't pronounce the names of the characters.
Yeah,
They didn't even make it, but they didn't make it past the prologue. And it's like, I don't see how you can criticize that and give up on a book and just not even try. So that really hacks me off when somebody is bad mouthing a book and they don't read it or give it a chance or welcome it, because I've never read a fantasy novel in my life that I was able to pronounce.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All the books are for.
Have you read a Sanderson book? Like,
Right?
the names that he
I mean,
creates, or like
A Memory Called Empire, the names are like 28 letters long. And
yeah,
and that book was nominated for awards, and it's just like that just really, really enraged me personally, because
it's a very, very silly thing to be mad at, unless you're mad at that
Yes.
across the board. Because it's not like
I mean-
Rage of Dragons was uniquely difficult to pronounce words. It's like
Right.
mm-mm.
it really.
I mean, it just really hacked me off, and I don't know. I mean, I can't even speak the English language well myself, so I don't know if that's why I didn't have as much of a stumbling block. But that was my number one critique that I heard from people, and without fail, every one of them that said that did not even complete the book. And I'm like, you just should let it.
That's crazy, because when I can't pronounce the name, I just start calling them by the first letter and move on.
Right?
Right? I
Yeah.
just give them a nickname.
That's my favorite part of any book or any fantasy novel, right?
Yeah, right.
It's the world building, the culture, like how they talk, how they speak. Like, why are we jumping into a world if we're not trying to
Well,
be a part of that?
makes them feel real. Like when I read, I picture it in my head like a movie, and the way he wrote and developed these characters, like I don't have much knowledge of it, but he did it in such a way, like you're talking about the descriptions of how dark and beautiful their skin was. Like I could see that in my mind.
Yeah.
And when I can picture it like a movie, to me, the author did his job.
Yeah.
And the book kind of felt like a movie.
Yeah,
It
it really did.
He really built the world up in 500 pages, give you a very like thought out, like 300 page sequence. And I'm like, this is concise and it's easy to digest. It's not overly dense, which I enjoy. Not to say that there aren't dense books that I enjoy, but it was done in a way that was almost effortless and like easy for the reader to consume. Like I've never seen something like, it was 2 weeks to read Rage of Dragons. It did not.
Right? No, it's like a matter of days.
Yeah. Like I said, I love books like this. Not every book needs to be 1,200 page long, descriptive, heavy style books. Like that's because I think I actually skipped that part of the question. Like my favorite part is just the fact that it was so well done and concise that like you don't need everything at length descriptive of like a Robert Jordan. Like it's catering to a different audience, but I feel like you got enough of it, and it was so well paced that it literally felt like an action movie, which I ate up the entire book. I don't even remember like 2 days or whatever that I read it in, because I was like constantly like from chapter to chapter. Like you're not like hitting a peak and then it's like, okay, side character time for 50 pages. It was just like, nope, this is the next battle. Like the next, 30 minutes down the road is the pacing was gorgeous. It was just wonderfully done.
Yep. That's sorry, go ahead, TJ. 4 books. So
one thing I think that I really enjoyed, and I think people pick on about, there was a good amount of brotherhood in the book. And I think that's what frustrated me with Tao, because he would like diss his brothers. But when I really think about it, I'm like, okay, if Evan didn't do a good job of showing camaraderie and brotherhood, you wouldn't care when Tao like left his brothers to do something, or when something happened. But like when I forgot who, Aaron, when you said like, that guy got his head popped, or when Udoc got hurt, or when I think it was Jingo, one that, or Chindu when he got killed. Like you saw grief in Tao. Like, you know, he was very one track mind to get his revenge. And his brothers were, you know, I mean, it just happens when you live and grow with
They
somebody.
gave him
They were
more
always
than he didn't
there.
deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had never had any friends before.
Yeah, I don't think
in
Peter
Jabari,
really
right?
experienced it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we're friends. And they were like, yes, we're brothers. And
Yeah.
I had to tell him, like, we're in this together. Like, I
Yes.
can protect you if you do this. And he's like, you don't need to protect me. He's like, yes, I do, because
Yes.
we're a team.
Yes. And so that was great to me. Like, he did a good job. Like, of course, Tao was one track minded to his detriment. He made mistakes. He made choices that you were like, oh, this wasn't a good choice. But you feel I feel like he did a good job of making you feel the repercussions of those choices, because he had built some camaraderie in it. Like, they were a scale. They were Jayed. So when one of them died or one of them got hurt, they all felt it. You know, he was like, man, like I did wrong. You know, I shouldn't did that, or you shouldn't did that. You leaving us out there to die. And again, Tao didn't take those things in fully in the beginning, because he was like, I still need most of the book.
I'm going to say Tao led a lot of people to their demise, not just his father.
He did.
But he
I
learned
agree with
from
you.
it.
I agree with
He
you.
learned from it.
He did.
He rose.
Yes, but he felt those repercussions of that. He rose to that, and at the end, he had to come to grips with what he had done, and I feel like you're seeing him come to grips with those things, and I feel like Evan Winter did a good job of making you care about those characters that he did leave in the dust. So
at the end of the book, he was fighting with Kellen. He could have killed him at any time.
Could have.
Yeah, that was completely unexpected.
Yes.
I remember at some point in the book where I was like, he keeps leading so many people to their death, and then he wants revenge, that we're never going to actually, our list is going to be so damn long of people that, like, unless he realizes that this is his fault, we're going to be slaughtering everybody in this kingdom.
Yes.
The Arya Stark list.
Yeah, the Arya, he did.
he would learn from his mistakes until the next scene happened, and then he would be like, wait, no, revenge.
I think at that point, I said to someone, I was like, for Child, it was like, if I see you, we're gonna fight. Like, it wasn't even a process; it was like an impulse. Like, and you're like, because in book 2, not a spoiler, there'll be moments where things get tense, and before you know it, Child knows that he has both his swords out, and people are like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were gonna fight.
Oh, oops.
Yeah.
And they're like, "No,
like, oh, did I
relax."
misread the situation?"
That's how we're getting coffee, bro. Like, you don't even.
Child is very much barbarian, or in a lot of ways. So I would imagine that.
Oh, this is a juicy question.
Okay, so juicy question, because I do see this in like a lot of people's top 10 fantasy books in general when they reviewed it. So, do we think that it belongs on Time's 100 best fantasy books list?
Top 5, yes,
absolutely.
So I would say yes, just because I mean the fantasy genre is gigantic, and even just the sense that like you don't see a lot of books like this book. You see a lot of things kind of repeating the traditional like medieval like European culture kind of fantasy. Yep. So even just the uniqueness of this, and then it being so well paced, and whether you love or hate Tao, like it was a good story, and the action was great. This brought a whole new face to the genre. And I know people have so many issues with these top 100 lists anyway, that there's probably a lot of other books that you can complain about before Rage of Dragons even. So I would say, it belongs up there.
Without a doubt.
It's unique. And with a lot of fantasies, even with books that you enjoy, it's like, okay, I can see, like, if you like this book, you're like this book, and this book, because they're the same. And I cannot point to another book in adult fantasy that is the same as Rage of Dragons, that has the same world, that has the same type of characters, that has the same like cast system set up. I cannot point to that. So its uniqueness is, for one thing, one of the reasons why it should be there, because it stands apart in a field. Besides the fact that they literally had a Cinderella story. Like, I think if you think about like, oh, how could things happen in the in a fantastical world, like a book being self-published, getting that big hype that it got at release weekend, getting picked up and going from that book being written at home part-time, self-published on Amazon, and then getting picked up, being published, and going on to be arguably one of people's best fantasy books of all time. I think a book that causes that much conversation, if nothing else, it deserves a part on the list, because the list is supposed to cause conversation.
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes, because for me, fantasy books that translate well to TV adaptation or film adaptation, and also creates a fandom, when you think about some of the top fantasy books of all times, people really read it yearly. They have characters that they relate to the most, that, you know what I'm saying, they're willing to argue about, stand behind, like those type of elements of a fantasy book, especially when, if you read the book, you're a huge fan, you're part of the fandom world, and if it gets translated to film, do you have a huge, you know what I'm saying, a lover of film people or movie people that also stand behind it. Stuff like Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, like I easily see Rage of Dragons fitting into those categories and those elements. So I'm definitely going to say yes, because if you're not a reader, this is something that you could still love equally if you've seen it on TV, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think I agree with all y'all. Y'all made very valid points. It deserves to be definitely on that list. It's unique. The action is amazing. The cast system is wonderful. His revenge story in itself is good. It's great. I don't know. I tie my emotions into my books very heavily. Like, you have to hit at least 2 or 3 different types of emotional cues for me, and this book does it. Makes me angry. It makes me happy. It made me laugh. I mean, come on. And it's a cool new world with women that rule it. Come on, y'all.
Yeah.
Especially, so I'm looking back over the list.
The take on dragons, I've never seen dragons done
Yeah, that was
they're not just generic dragons, like they just exist in the world. It's like you literally call them down and like rain fire on people, and you have to hold them in the underworld. Like the whole thing is just
and the dragons, they're not your friend. Like
So one complaint I saw, not to go back, but one complaint I saw was that somebody was mad because they thought there was going to be dragons throughout the entire book, and there wasn't. And the whole idea behind the dragons, like y'all just mentioned, is like, no, these are tools that we are oppressing. And it's
they're also, the dragons are basically nukes. It's like the whole like prologue, like they use them, and it's like you see the destruction, and then when they're used again later on in the book, and you realize that you just like wiped out an entire like village of shit, like we just killed a bunch of people because we dropped this bomb on them.
They're the final boss. I mean, you bring them out and it's
Exactly.
over. So.
I feel like the term Rage of Dragons is a metaphor, because the dragons are stuck in the situation, and so they have no choice but to fight.
Right.
And that's true for Tao and his people, and it's also true for everybody in this book. Everybody in some way is trapped in a metaphorical cage. And so we all have to fight. So I feel like the Rage of Dragons is a metaphor for what this book is about, and not just angry dragons.
Right.
And we get more dragon content in book 2.
Also, just to the point of before we move on, to the point of the times list, just looking back over it, you have several books from a single series on here, even as recently as the Poppy War and Dragon Republic making it. Like, Rage of Dragons absolutely deserves a spot. You have like 3 Harry Potter books on here. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I feel like it should have been limited to 1 entry per series.
I agree with that.
Yeah, like the best book in the series.
Poppy War and Dragon Republic are on here. Both Children of Blood and Bone and the sequel are on here. They've got like, let's see.
Children of Blood and Bone, I love that. I love that book in that series. But if that's on there, then definitely Rage of Dragons, because for me, Rage of Dragons was the adult version of like Children of Blood. Like, I read Children of Blood and Bone. I loved it. I wanted it to be more angry, more gory, more death, more aggressive, and like I got all of that when I read it. If you're watching this and you want more action than what Zellinum gave you, definitely Rage of Dragons if you like Children of Blood and Bone.
We could have a whole video on that list. That would have to be like a 4-part video because it's 100 books. 25.
All right, so Leslie and then TG, I guess, for the
I would definitely put it in top 5. I mean, it is one of my favorite books I've read this year. Not alone on that. It's just of all time fantasy books, because there are so many things in this book that's never been done before. And you just win me over when you do things like that. The fact that, the women are in power, mentioning how the dragons were used to really just, I can't believe it's not on there. It makes no sense. That list was rigged. It was absolutely rigged.
No, I
But
definitely.
just his writing style deserves to be on that list.
The quote that book, those books are so quotable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it is on the list. Yeah, it's on the list. It made the list. And it deserves. I think it deserves to be on the list. I mean,
For sure.
we kind of just touched around the magic system in that, and I mean, the whole world I think is just cause and then effect. You know, you do something, make a bad decision, you step outside classical system, and you see the effect. And I think the whole magic system is like that too. Like it's not just indefinite. Like these women can do some really powerful things, but like there's an effect of how long they can do it. And if they, you know, something bad happens, if they stay there longer than they're supposed to, you know, Tao, it gets on his mental. Like he gets this great power from going to Shelgo, but he also gets very, you know,
I mean, it literally breaks
the real world. You know, yeah, exactly. So there's a
cost to using magic.
A cost to using magic, and there's a cost to all the decisions in the book too. So I think Evan did a great job of showing that within this system. I think it 100% deserves to be on that list. So
one thing that I think a lot of fantasy books do is that our main character, they're normal, but then we find out they're so special. And Tao is normal and he is not special.
Yeah.
And the things that he can't be enraged. He has no connection to the magic. He's not rich. He's not powerful. He's not like just the most handsome man ever. And people just fall to their feet. He's so normal and so regular.
Well, he would be handsome if he took a bath.
Yeah, but you know, the scar, just all those.
Yeah, they all scarred up.
And so it's just there's always an appeal to the main character, like, oh, they're just this pinnacle of what you should be. Tao is like absolutely not a pinnacle of anything. Even to the end, she's like, "Are you sure you want to do this, Queen?" She's like, "Yeah, we need them actually."
Yeah.
So I love how Tao is just like the most anti-hero ever, and he's not special. He's so normal.
Great.
She was a beast in book 2. Just saying.
Yes, yes, she is.
Thanks for the Gushfest.
Maybe
so if this hasn't convinced all the haters out there that don't like Rage of Dragons, it's much better than you give it credit for.
Yes.
Easy.
And the sequel resolves a lot of the critiques. If you have the ones that we mentioned, a lot of them are resolved in a
Yeah, you know what, Elle, you can't talk, but I see you. So
read the sequel.
We are correct. You are not.
Correct.
I'm just
deal with it.
No, I mean,
so I'm gonna see all y'all again for the Fires of Vengeance Gushfest. We doing this. We running this back.
Oh yeah.
We already have a live show and everything. It's gonna be fantastic.
I hope I connect with Tao in the second book.
I do too.
Is Udok in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he better be.
So all I'll say
That's the
spoiler
real
for
hero.
book 2 is Tao is less of an idiot. He's definitely more of like willing to listen to people. You get more buildup of side characters as opposed to book 1 because you actually get more POVs, kind of, sort of, which is good. You get more dragons, people.
Lore.
Okay, but I need some tea, Alex. I'm shipping the Queen and Tao. Am I right?
I forget whose criticism was that the women didn't have as much of a voice. Is that you, Leslie? Did you say that? So I definitely feel like their voice in Fires of Vengeance
They get pretty loud in Fires of Vengeance.
Loud, like way more impactful. Definitely, those women were running the show for sure. In Fires of Vengeance.
Sounds like my kind of people.
Naya?
Naya's.
Exactly. I don't put them together. If Tao
listen,
his head.
There are 2 ships in Fires of Vengeance. One that's really by surprise.
Yeah.
Guys.
It's Tao in a story.
I'm gonna read it for the female leadership, and I'm gonna read it for Udon.
Yes, you'll get both. You'll be happy on both.
You get both.
You love both of them.
All right. So I guess that'll do it for this one until we either do a live show or another one of these for book 2 at some point when 2 of the 6 of us reads it after reading your short Rhythm of War and Sword of Kaigen. But so we don't know when that'll be, but that'll happen eventually. But thank you all for watching. Of course, like and subscribe to the channel. Again, all this goes towards charity. And you get to see a lot of collaboration with tons and tons of booktubers. So more videos to come. And until next time, that's going to do it for this one. Bye, guys.